Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome participants to the virtual planning board meeting of December 13th. And at this time, I'd like to call to order of the board, take a quorum count. Ms. Creighton?
Here.
Ms. Delicio said she won't be joining us. Ms. Foley said she won't be joining us. Mr. Gilbert said he won't be joining us. Mr. Only?
Yes, I'm here.
And Ms. Tenney?
Here.
And I'm here. So we have a quorum. And I'd like to remind all board members to ask to be recognized by the chair if you wish to speak, and this meeting's being recorded. At this time, I'd like to welcome Sharon George as our new planning board administrator, and I look forward to working with Sharon, even though she's not here tonight. So.
She has to be there. She has to be there.
Well, I don't see. Is that you, Sharon? Let's see.
No, man. No, that is not.
Okay. All right.
Oh, man.
So first up on the agenda is the acknowledgement receipt of correspondence, and I have 5, and maybe Sue, you can help me if I miss any, but I have the Hamilton Conservation Commission notice of a 12/8 meeting. I had the Hamilton Planning Board notice of a 12/9 meeting. We had a opposition letter from Scott Susko to the ZBA on 1 Spy Rock Hill development. We had a correspondence from William Cross on an ADU article, I think published in the New York Times. And lastly, I have a Lorraine Iavani dashboard letter that we received on December 1st. Did I miss anything, Sue, that you can think of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not counting those associated with the 94 bridge.
No, that's
Okay.
different.
Yeah. Okay. Did you want to comment on something, Sarah, on the Spy Rock Hill, or or not? I thought I read something.
Yeah, I just said that I'm interested that the applicant didn't take our advice and went straight to the ZBA, which I guess there's nothing we can do about that. But
That's true.
yeah. But it begs the question. We had this on another property about the maybe having given that I'm new here, is a conversation at some point with the ZBA about the intersection of our responsibilities and the philosophy around. I don't know what the ZBA's disposition is on this particular site, but I think they want relief from frontage is I suspect what they, and I haven't seen their plan at the ZBA, but so I just sort of was curious if we had any sense of whether that is something that the ZBA tends to grant in general. From history.
Actually, I see Sarah Merlish is on. Sarah, do you have any comment on that?
She probably can't comment on it. But
yes,
okay.
So it is before us. I have had a conversation with Gary Gilbert, was planning to submit a letter to us tomorrow regarding whether we can grant frontage on roads to which there is no access. So we are in conversation, and it's not clear to me whether we can grant frontage if there's no access to the property. So as it stands now, they claim there are 2 sites that have frontage, one on Spy Rock Hill and one on C Street. But because of cliffs, they can't access the property on C Street. The other one with access on The other one with frontage on C Street is 10 feet short of the
Mhm.
frontage. So it's problematic.
Right. So I guess the question is whether or not twofold. One is they have insufficient frontage, and the second is that their frontage is over steep slopes. So just so you're aware, Sarah, or in your committee, and maybe that's will be part of Gary's letter, I was actually on the planning board in the, I don't know, 20 years ago, 18, I don't know exactly when, roughly 20 years ago. And this exact site came up and was denied for steep slopes for an A&R. So I don't know the property well enough to know whether it, as a subdivision, whether, I think that's the intent. It's my opinion that the intent of subdivision control law is to be able to give oversight and create, in situations where you don't have frontage, you create frontage on a new way, and then to examine the associated impacts in detail. So that's just
And-
my point.
And my frustration is my understanding, he talked to the planning board and it was punted back to us.
Yeah, he talked to us.
Yeah.
He came to us asking for advice about whether he thought he could get an A&R, and we said no.
Right,
Well, we said
so,
we didn't take a vote. It was our advice to him
Right.
that our informal advice that he was not entitled to an A&R for 2 lots, let alone 3. So that I was, and Gary and I both were fairly strong-willed, strongly opinionated about that. And we, I believe, said, the only way you'd get 3 lots out of this is a subdivision, might get 3 lots out of this subdivision where you created frontage on a small road as a potential. I mean, I haven't laid that out, nor is it our job.
and what the applicant heard is he needed to apply for a variance from the ZBA.
Well, that's not what he was told.
So that's the challenge we have.
Yeah, but that's not what I think it's important that maybe that's important for your committee. I think we're going to review minutes tonight. We'll make sure that it reflects that.
Great.
But
Yeah.
we did not say go get a variance for sure. I think I guess my larger question is, as we think about zoning, dimensional requirements and frontage at the very basic level, and use as the 3 major things, if those things are given variances once or many times, then the zoning has no meaning. And neighbors who buy properties or assessment of the property values, either undervalue or overvalue, depending on the circumstances, a property, if zoning has no meaning. And in this case, the financial hardship case, to me, at least, that is required for variances doesn't seem to be met.
And just to be transparent, we also have 34 Tappan Street in front of us on Wednesday.
That hasn't come before.
That
Well-
has been before us. Yeah.
It's single district A was trying to convert a storage into 4 condos.
So it's the same question, right? It's the same.
Right.
It's the same applications, because here we are, we're trying to improve our zoning. And if variances are granted
What good is it?
broadly, and I'm not insinuating that they are, because I'm just coming up to speed here.
Right.
It's a matter of sort of intent. And so it seems to me that over time we might, as we think together about zoning changes, then we might think together also about variances and the circumstances under which they'd be granted. So that's all. It's just a theoretical conversation at this point. So
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
All right, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Sarah. Sarah and Sarah. Right. Okay. I do see, Sharon, that you're on, and I just wanted to welcome you as our new planning board administrator, and I look forward to working with you. So welcome aboard. Okay, at this time, I will allow any public comments on items not on the agenda with a limited amount of time. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? Okay, we have a few updates to go over. Being that we have a limited a board presence tonight, I guess we can be brief, but Sarah and Chris, if you wanted to give I guess Laura and I a recodification update, although I think you'd be just talking to Laura at this point, because I think I know what you guys have been doing, but
There's.
Well, I can do it. Can I just share my screen real quick? I'll be
yeah,
short.
hold on.
Oops, of course, I got to put the right screen on. So Chris and I met, and we, Chris, jump in if you can't see the screen. Can you guys see it?
No.
I think I know what the screen says.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you know what it says. It says Springtown meeting. Now, can you see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So here are the things that we propose trying to bring to Springtown meeting. And I talked to Greg and he said plan on April. So, it may get pushed out. The first is updated maps, the section. Oh, I forgot to add in section 12. Updated maps, sections 1 through 4. Move the junk cars and the curb cuts to general bylaws, accessory dwelling units, requests from Chuck Dam about updating our stormwater zoning, senior housing potentially. Section 6 needs some rework, and section 12. And Chris and I felt like this is now the time to basically move forward Mark's comments, and that if we put them in these buckets, they stand alone. So if one fails, the other, now that we have things in a new order. And we then went as far as to assign people to work on these. You can see Gary for accessory dwelling units, Sarah and Chris for these Sue updated maps, stormwater update, maybe Laura and Sue work together on that. Senior housing to be determined, and Chris on section 6. And
What's section
then,
6?
You gotta put a section 12 in there too, no?
oh, section
Section
12,
12.
sorry. I'll do that one.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay. That's definitions.
And what's
Well,
6?
no,
Sorry.
that's the administration, or that's the administration. Sorry,
Right.
anyway. And then the really scary thing is that Chris is working on a more detailed timeline, but if April town meeting is gonna happen, hearings have to be in March, which we need final drafts by mid-February so we can post public hearing notices, which means we need to get it all done in January. So it is almost all done, although we're going to have some discussion around some of the finer points of this. So I propose that we have a couple of working committee meetings like we did for this past town meeting, because I thought that was really useful. So I'll work with Ron and send out maybe some times that we can do it. Not everybody can come, but at least it allows us to work in person on get more content and hammer through the things that don't make sense. But I think Chris and I are thinking this is now when we move to Mark's changes and incorporate them wholesale. And one of the big questions is going to be, how do we actually publish that for a town meeting warrant? But that's something we'll figure out. So that's the update. Chris, anything to add?
Just that we need to figure out how to use Mark Bobrowski going forward, given how much money's left in the budget and what the best use of his time is. And one of the things we need to do is to somehow reformat the current bylaw into the new sections that were approved by the last town meeting and those deletions that were included. So we can now look at a clean copy of the zoning bylaw as it stands today, and then start making these changes to that version and not the old version. So that's going to change a lot of the Bobrowski proposed changes, just technically from, section numbers and so forth. So we got to make sure we get that done correctly. And given what Sarah and I went through just renumbering, it's not an easy task, and we're going to have to all, work hard on getting it done right.
Do you guys see
Um,
engaging Bobrowski after we've had this subcommittee meetings and have something drafted, right? I would think.
I think our thought was that we'd have him review what we do and that,
Right.
not on clerical matters. But I think we need to sort of, some of those tasks may need some of his time. Another thing that I didn't put on this list because it's unclear is the requirement for a district within 1 mile of transit, that the regulations are being worked on.
Is it 1 mile, Sarah, or is it a half a mile? I think, Sue, is it a half a mile or 1 mile?
I believe it's a half mile.
Wow. So
There
if
was
that
a-
gets promulgated, then we're gonna have to figure out what that zone is. That's another reason to work.
That would be an overlay possibly, right?
Right.
Well, we're waiting for the state to issue the regulations so we can see what exactly it has to be.
Yeah.
Could
And
map
we
it.
thought-
And apparently,
Yeah, we thought Mark might have some good advice on how to write those regulations. But we still have to decide which overlay district it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And
Can I ask a couple of questions? Oh,
yeah,
sorry, Ron.
Go ahead, Laura, you have your hand raised.
I know, Sarah, you and Chris are abundantly familiar now with the new language. When I went through a while back, particularly when I was looking at the site aspects, maybe this is covered in the question about stormwater, but I don't see an overarching resiliency and sustainability scrub of our zoning yet. And I think if we're doing zoning, we should be talking about that. So for instance, the landscape material is primarily visual buffers. It really has no performance aspect to it. So I'm interested to hear how others think we might incorporate some sustainability and resiliency planning in our zoning. I think it's critical that we think about that at
well,
this
I think
juncture.
maybe the answer to that, Laura, is that you've just volunteered to take that on.
Was that the, thank you. Thanks for nothing. Are you, what's the DPW stormwater update? Is that like, can you say a little more about that and what the question is there?
Just, I can send you, Duck Dam sent us some new regs that we're required to have for stormwater.
Okay,
One of the questions that Chris raised is, does it belong in zoning or does it belong in the general bylaws? And I haven't looked at it. So
okay.
I think, though, you're asking a larger question. There's stormwater, and then there are a whole bunch of other resilience.
Yeah, I mean, stormwater is
issues.
certainly a big part of it, but there are others.
Right, and
Well-
I agree with you. So we should look for places.
Yeah, I agree. Just
Yeah.
for the record, I agree also. I think it's a critical thing that's got to be done.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And the other thought there is, I do think some of these changes remain administrative. And so we're gonna want to think about strategically what the best timing is going to be on that. But on the other hand, if we could get as much done as we can in 8 articles, 8 easy
Yeah.
articles,
8 easy pieces.
8 easy
Is-
pieces.
Yeah.
And this is a but nonetheless, I think, this is our job here and we need to, this is an opportunity. The other piece of this discussion would be the timing if the ZBA has some critical things before it that could timing wise be unstrategic, but we'll have to figure out when we get there if that is the case.
And I have one
Ron?
more follow-up question. Maybe it's directed to you, Sue, which is Mark Bobrowski the right consultant to be helping us through these kind of resiliency questions? I feel like he certainly knows his zoning law, but I don't feel like he brought that lens to it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it's
I
a
think-
sort of a backwards looking, look at precedent right now.
Yeah, no, I think we can look at other communities that have updated theirs and, I think we can do that work. So I would think that
Okay.
we don't need to necessarily look at him to find or to write those, but I think they're out there.
Okay.
But I'd
Well,
like,
he may actually know. We
He
might
might.
be worth
Right.
asking him.
so can I suggest though that that $10,000 of Mark's time is going to go very quickly, and that we, use it, maybe it's Sue and Chris and I kind of manage that time, and that we only have conversations with him so everybody can hear them, so that they're very focused, so that we use his time very strategically, that we use that $10,000. It may not all be for Mark's time, because Laura's prior point. So that, and this money, as we understand, the remaining in that budget can carry forward into next fiscal year, right, Sue?
It can, yeah. And I
Go ahead.
was just going to suggest that I think probably he would be most useful perhaps in our public forums where we might need some law review on certain articles, or why we're suggesting changes and why they're needed. So I think some of the hearings might be the type of where we would get the most bang for the buck with him. But I do have one more question, Ron. if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm wondering, Sarah and Chris, are we not considering the changes to the conservation residential cluster bylaw, where they include I think it was 8.4.
That's part of section 6, isn't it?
Oh, okay. I thought you had told Laura that section 6 was administrative. That's why I was confused. It
No,
is part of
it's 12.
section 6. Okay, I beg your pardon. Okay, if that's section 6, yeah, perfect. Thank you.
And we also can, correct me if I'm wrong, call on town council on the actual writing of the warrant and bylaw change in it, and that's not part of the budget.
So yeah, we need to write them, now as articles, so we get them to town council quick, as early as possible, so that we get that input. They always have a lot to do for an annual town meeting, so.
I suspect it might not be in April, but that's a good timeline to target to shoot for, but.
We'll be ready.
Yeah. Okay, great. Good update. Thank you. The next update is to Sue on the zoning maps. We talked about you making a call this week. Any traction on that?
Yes, I finally was able to reach Priya at the AppGeo, and she said that they could begin in January, and that she would estimate maybe 3,000, but might be put it up to 5,000 depending on how much back and forth. I really don't think there will be a lot of back and forth. It's really just to make sure they're legible. There aren't really any changes to the layers or anything. So I think just we just need to decide generally whether we're going to have 2 maps or 3 maps. My guess is that we might want 3 total, just for legibility's sake. One in particular blowing up the area that's showing the D1 and D2 or whatever they're called, and then one that has the zoning and one or maybe overlay district, and then another one with the other overlay districts. Because when you put all the water resource overlay districts on top of each other, then they don't become very legible. So I think it's pretty easy. I think it would be probably under 3,000, and she's going to provide a scope of services and an estimate.
So do we get the native file if we wanted to create an additional overlay down the road? I mean, don't have to go through this again?
Well, we have the files. AppGeo has
Okay.
has and manages all the layers, and they are on the town's website. So it's really just kind of putting them together into a legible map.
Okay. Any other questions from the board on the town mapping?
Well, it has to be a map that's referenced in zoning, right? So one of the zoning changes that we need to do is to reference a new map
Exactly.
with the RD1 and RD2.
Right.
Clearly, because it's almost impossible to figure it out from the narrative.
And from the current map.
That's why
Not very
the table.
And eventually this half-mile radius of the T station, we'll probably want to know what that is at some point. Okay, any other questions on the maps? Okay, on the blasting regulations update, Christine's not here, so we have no update on that. Any comments from the board on the blasting? I think we need to move that forward as soon as possible.
Ron, I did reach out to the fire chief, and he has not had any further conversation with her. So I don't think that any draft has been distributed for his review or any further discussion. So I just wanted to let you know that I did speak with the fire chief today. I think
Have a
it's
time,
easier.
do we have a timeline on this since this was voted at the fall town meeting?
It's voted in June or July.
June. Okay.
My suggestion is maybe Sue, you could reach out to the I think it was Mike Carvello, who was the proponent of this article, and see what if he has background information that we might use. Or
I'd be happy to.
I mean, yeah, that would be great. Yeah,
I'd be
great.
happy to do that.
Okay.
Maybe he knows a community that already has it. I don't think we need to reinvent. When I talked to the state fire, I don't know the name of the agency that has to approve all the zoning changes. They said that predominantly the only additional changes that communities have in addition to that are anything other than a reference to state regulations are simply times of blasting, either days or hours, or the extent of the area that is where pre-blasting surveys, et cetera, are done. And that's principally all they typically see. But I think Mr. Carvello maybe has some information about types of products and things.
Right.
I think the concern was the PFAS, the persistent.
Right.
Right.
I think
chemicals
I
in
think that
blasting
would
materials.
I think that would be if we concentrate on that and get those in. I think that would really be all. I don't think it needs to be complicated. The state regulations are there.
Okay. Thank you. I'm stalling for a couple of seconds because it's 6:59. But I may just wait till 7 on this public hearing. I do want to talk about the Water Resources Task Force, but I don't think we can do it in like less than a minute. So I just want to open this public hearing at 7.
Ron, at the end of the meeting, could we spend a few minutes on the Cornerstone Church comments?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Great. 7 p.m. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing on the special permit application of Susan St. Pierre on behalf of Edward and Karen Crawley for a special permit under section 7.5 and 4.1.10J of the zoning bylaw to restore an historic seawall and install a timber pier, gangway, and float on their property along Whittier's Cove at 94 Bridge Street. Inasmuch as there are not 5 planning board members present this evening and a special permit requires 5 members or a supermajority for any action to be taken, Ms. Pierre submitted a letter this afternoon to the board on behalf of her clients consenting to the continuance of the hearing of the planning board to the planning board's next meeting on January 10th, 2022. May I have well, I think before all that, I think I needed to take a motion to open the public hearing from the board.
No, you don't. No, you're okay.
Okay, I'm okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, so may I have a motion to continue the public hearing for a special permit under section 7.5 and 4.1.10J of the zoning bylaw to restore an historic seawall, install a timber pier, gangway, and float on their property along Whittier's Cove at 94 Bridge Street to January 10th, 2022 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second. I'll
Any
second it.
discussion? Any discussion?
One
Roll.
question, Ron, I totally did space the site walk. How many people were able to go? Only you?
Just Laura and
2 of
I.
us. Okay.
It was a very
Right.
nice afternoon or morning.
Morning.
We had to avoid certain things on the grass, but we made it. So yeah, nice site. what's the,
my apologies.
yeah. So we took a motion and it was seconded and we had discussion. Roll call. Ms. Creighton?
Yes.
Mr. Olney?
Yes,
Ms. Tenney?
Roll call that I'm here. Sorry, what are we doing?
Voting the.
Voting to
Oh,
continue
voting in
this to,
continuance. Beg your pardon. Yes.
and chair votes yes. Okay, thank you. So on December 2nd, the Board of Selectmen unanimously approved creation of this Water Resources Task Force. They embrace the goal and necessity of developing a strategy for Manchester's drinking water over the next 5 decades, along with a comprehensive plan to implement that strategy. And there's a bunch of information on how this committee is going to be organized, and they expect it to be a 12 to 18-month duration. They have an initial budget of $25,000 to $30,000 seed money, which will wait until next year's town meeting. It's organized with 2 parts, an advisory board for oversight, and then a working team to collect and analyze information. So tonight, we need to propose a planning board designee to be given to the Board of Selectmen for their approval. And then I think with us at our meeting tonight is Steve Gang, Chair of the Concom, and I invite Steve to say a few words on what qualifications or what you guys are looking for and the Board of Selectmen are looking for in a candidate. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
and good evening, everybody. I'll just first say I'm excited, as are many of the conservation commissioners, by the selectmen's decision to kick off this task force, because the problem is a real one, and although Manchester's in an enviable position, it will not remain that way. So the qualifications we're most looking for, I think, are really 2, and those are energy and curiosity. Sorry about that vague answer, but as opposed to looking for a qualified geohydrologist, that we think we can rent, if we're given a budget for expert consultants. But we need some folks who are relatively open-minded about how to approach the question of the long-term strategy for quantity and quality of drinking water, and have the energy to pursue some things, gather some data, and participate in a kind of robust discussion of what the data tells us. Is that helpful?
Good, thank you, Steve. At this point, I would throw my hat into the rink if someone so chose to nominate me. I would love to sit on this committee. As you know, I'm an engineer. I've been in the water business line with this Legacy Metcalf and Eddy company, who did the treatment plant at Deer Island. I've been with the company 37 years. I have a water background in the water business line, and would hope the board would consider me as a potential candidate.
So moved.
so I'd like to make a statement.
Yes. Yes.
So I think the most important criterion that Steve mentioned, and I think his presentation was very good, is open-mindedness. And I think someone with an independent and thoughtful, what's the word I want to use? Philosophy on how to handle this very difficult and complicated situation is going to be the most important thing that the planning board can contribute. And so I would like to nominate Ron Mastrogiamico to be the planning board's member on the task force.
Second.
Third,
Okay. So, all right, well, thank you. I'll take a roll call vote on that. Ms. Creighton,
Yeah, yes.
Mr. Only,
Yes,
Ms. Tenney,
yes.
and I will enthusiastically invoke myself. Thank you. Secondly, we need a second person to kind of sit in and participate when I cannot. Sort of a, I wouldn't say note taker, but someone that could, you know, speak the language, take the information and participate if necessary. And I would strongly endorse Sarah Creighton to be the alternate. And is there a
Yep.
second? Well,
sure. If that's a motion, I'll second it.
I make a motion to endorse Sarah Creighton as alternate to the Water Resource Committee.
So I'll second that.
Just thank you. Just by discussion, just so people know, I actually have a master's in water resources and wrote the water withdrawal permit for the city of Beverly back many years ago. So I don't know anything about wastewater. So that's Ron.
Keep it away from the water. That's what we know. So,
Or turn it into
Um,
drinking water.
okay, so a roll call vote as Sarah Creighton as the alternative. Any discussion?
Oh, I think it is important that the minutes reflect that Christine had expressed interest in this committee, and just to make sure people remember that she had expressed some interest and that she is was I believe the liaison, but not, now this to the committee that didn't yet exist at that point. So I think we're just
Correct.
it's important that we reflect that.
Okay,
So we have a wealth of interested planning board meeting members. Is there a way for just people to stay plugged in if they're expressing a special interest?
yes,
Mr.
I
Chair,
think,
if I may.
yes,
Yeah.
Steve, I think there's going to be some public, go ahead, Steve.
Yes, I was just going to say, you among a few other town boards and commissions, the planning board is super endowed with talent. And I would encourage anybody else who's interested in this and thinks they might be able to make time to contribute to contact me. And we're going to be putting together this so-called working team, which is a bit more sleeves rolled up and dirt under the fingernails. It's not going to be an 12 to 18 month commitment, because I think that would be asking a lot. It's going to be more task oriented for shorter periods with a kind of revolving membership. But we didn't mean to put the burden of the working team exclusively on people designated by the various boards and commissions, such as you have. They're not excluded, but they're not required to be part of the working team. So there'll be plenty of room for anybody who wants to pitch in, assuming the Board of Selectmen doesn't find any objection.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So to the motion of Sarah Creighton as alternative to the Water Resources Task Force, I'll take a roll call vote. Ms. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Olney,
Yes,
chair votes yes, and hopefully Sarah, you vote yes.
I vote yes.
All right, thank you all. Thank you,
Thank you
Steve.
too.
Yep. So I guess it's up to the Board of Selectmen to actually concur with our decision. So nothing's etched in stone yet. I think the decision is in the Board of Selectmen's hand. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, on that.
Yes, that's exactly right, Ron.
Okay. Okay. So next item on the agenda is the planner's report, and Sue submitted a planner's report. It was in our packet. Anybody have any comments? I know the Western Woods meeting was in there, and lots of good stuff.
Let's see, just looking through it.
Okay, there's no comments on the planner's report. I will move on.
Is there any, just a question to Sue, is there anything you need, you put a nice summary together for us. Is there anything you need direction on, or are you wanting us to discuss any of these studies or grants?
So thanks. I think it's mostly for information, and I don't have it in front of me. I would like, the board to know that we had a good meeting with the Open Space and Recreation Committee. Got a lot of input, in particular from people who lived close to the Western Woods, which I thought was super helpful. And I was really glad that the outreach reached them and that they were able to join us at this early meeting. I do see the Western Woods as kind of a series of meetings going forward as we figure out, how these lands want to be managed and come up with some goals for them. So it's early in the process, but I really appreciate that people weighed in, and I thought it was a good conversation. There was certainly overwhelming approval of the concept of preserving that land, and then some questions about ownership, management, types of uses that would be allowed, access, et cetera. So it was all the right discussions, I think, at this early meeting, at this early forum. So I don't think we need any particular input on that one. I did note that I think also in my report I mentioned that that I did put in 24 the parking study.
Yeah.
And I have had conversations with several consultants, and it is felt generally that it would be about a $60,000 study. I know that seems
60, did you say?
Yeah, I know that seems high, but
No, not really. Yeah.
the groundwork that goes into it, the field work, the actual people on the ground taking counts and things that elevate that. And I did offer two samples. One was by MAPC and the other by Nygaard, who is widely considered, one of the best in the field. And I thought they were, strikingly similar. So, but I just wanted to share that.
And are there, when you start a parking study, is there a problem statement or something? Like, how do you frame it up, and
Yeah,
what are you trying to get to?
That's a great question. MAPC also shared kind of a short document on how one undertakes a parking study and what you're looking to do. So I think that would be appropriate to do. I've kind of framed that out in the concept that I've sent them. But I'd be happy for us to look at it at the very beginning of the process and agree on that once we kind of determine if it's going to go forward, which I do believe that it will. So, I mean, for what was laid out in the concept that was sent to MAPC was that we want to determine if there is a parking shortage, and also to actually look at a few increases in, to take into account if there is an increase in housing in the downtown, to see if that would have an impact on parking. So I think there are a few things that we can look at that's specific to potential changes and not just a traffic count to see if it's to see if there is a problem.
And when they look at, not only just quantity as a sort of baseline number, but efficiency, pooling,
Yes.
Parking,
Exactly.
those kinds of issues, okay.
Yeah,
Bike
exactly.
parking, does that factor in, or is it strictly vehicular parking?
No, it's all kinds of parking, and it's not only is it, how many parking spaces, but also how often they turn over to get to your point, to see if they're efficient, or if management of those spaces can change can
Mhm,
change things.
mhm.
So I do think it would be a great idea to be very explicit right at the beginning what we're looking at and what we hope to
Right. It would be great to talk about EV parking as well.
Mhm.
Can you, have you shared with us the request that you made to MAPC for the parking study?
Yes, I can, but I'm happy to do it again.
So maybe, maybe we can actually create a folder for a studies folder.
Sure.
So then we can keep I think we talked a little bit about this, trying,
Yeah.
have things organized by topic that are gonna be long, over a time.
Ongoing.
So that we can find them. And that, when in SharePoint, you can name things, long names, requests for MAPC to do a downtown parking study, and then it's easier to search
Right.
our files for downtown parking study.
I'll be happy to make a parking
yeah,
study
so
file.
avoid any, so that would be great. And I would very much like to have a conversation here about, once this gets going, about the full scope of what that service is going to be. Laura's got some really good ideas, and we want to be, I would like to see us think about, what are the various uses for downtown, rather than prejudging it as housing, because certainly if we have more retail, or maybe it's all of the above, right? Housing, retail, visitors, whatever. So let's make sure that we're not picking winners and losers on that at this point. So anyway, all good thoughts.
Okay, thank you all. Thanks, Sue. Subcommittee and liaison reports. I'll go first. The CPC met on Thursday, December 9th, and projects for the next fiscal year were discussed. And I created a spreadsheet of the projects. They haven't been approved yet, but I uploaded them to our meeting folder, our tonight's meeting folder. There's a PDF file on the projects categorized by the 3 CPC categories. So if anyone's interested, the documents up on our meeting on our meeting site for tonight's meeting. Any other subcommittee or liaison reports to the board?
I do not have any.
Okay. Chris, anything on your committee?
No, just that of course, the town meeting gave a very strong endorsement to the plan of renovating the housing authority properties and the DPW site as a potential site for affordable housing. And based on that meeting, we're going to be putting together a draft request for proposals to see if we can get a developer on board, submit that to DHCD for their approval so that we can go out and start making this happen. But that's probably at least a month or so away.
Yeah, I would encourage, Ron, if I may, I would encourage everyone we did complete the survey for the neighborhoods and including the DPW site. And I would encourage you to check those out. They're on the Affordable Housing Trust website, complete with a lot of comments, just like in the master planning process, hundreds of comments, which I think are really helpful. And
they're very interesting.
It makes for a long read, but we can glean a lot from those.
Yeah, it's interesting, the range of people's views about this, which it is worth reading them.
Okay.
Get summarized at some point, or what do you do with the survey?
Yeah, that's a great point. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, it's going to take a while to try to digest it all. I mean, in general, the town seems to be very positively engaged in creating more affordable housing. And I think what happens is it's a great idea until it gets to be in your backyard, and then you suddenly start having questions. But it's more, there are a few, of course, gadflies or naysayers who are going to be opposed to almost anything. But most of the comments from the neighbors seem to be, want to learn more. How can I participate? Can we take this into account? They're all very interesting and thoughtful, for the most part, comments, which I think we'll be taking into account as we go through the planning process.
Yeah, I would note that
But-
go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris, were you not finished?
Well, I was just going to say, maybe this results in an article for the Cricket or something. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think we have to think this through a little bit before we decide how to publicize what happened.
Yeah, I have just 2 points. I think one thing that we did when we had all those comments from the master plan, we did go through a process where we tried to break them down, categorize them, so we could have some takeaways. And that may be something that the Affordable Housing Trust might want to do. I thought it was helpful because they kind of fit in a number of buckets. And then at least instead of 300 comments, you're kind of looking at 4 or 5, 6, 7 points. I think that might be a helpful exercise. The other thing I wanted to say is at the Affordable Housing Trust last meeting, they did say that they wanted to continue discussions with the neighbors. So the Housing Authority is agreed to take time or put on their agenda at each of their meetings a place for an update, for the project update. And they also to have people come in and hear or ask questions or share concerns, and that they would rotate meetings between the Plains and New Park, and that a member of the trust, the Affordable Housing Trust, which is kind of the working arm of this group, would be at each one of those meetings. So we're trying to have, at least for the residents, have many opportunities consistently. And then they also, the Affordable Housing Trust also agreed to invite neighbor groups into their meetings on a somewhat regular basis. So I think the trust is thinking about ongoing outreach to help just to continue those discussions.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Thanks, Chris. Okay, any other liaison reports or subcommittee? Approval of the regular minutes from November 22nd. Any comments or corrections? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve as
There was
written.
one typo. I was actually not at that meeting, but I noticed there was a dollar sign missing, or I think it was a K after 75K. It was in one of the dollar figures.
Okay.
I'm trying to find it.
So
real quick.
can I point out something? If Laura was not at the meeting, she's not going to be able to vote, so we're not going to have
No, I'm not going to be
a
able to
quorum
vote.
to approve them.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to
Good
put
point.
this off till the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's true. We will pass
And it
over
was
the minutes.
on, just so somebody can pick it up, it was on page 3 under the 5-year plan for planning board studies. It says $75 for a downtown strategic plan. I think
That's cheap, Sue. Where did you
underfunded.
get those?
I'd say that's underfunded.
I don't know. I like that. Okay, thank you, Laura, and we'll vote that in January. Okay, other matters not anticipated by the chair. Laura, you had some comments on Cornerstone Church to the group.
Yes, I did. Can I share my screen for a moment?
Yeah, hold on. Let me
Okay.
give you.
Okay. So I'm not asking anybody to look in detail at this. It's posted on our SharePoint site, but just as a reminder, after we met in, I think, October and had the site meeting with Cornerstone Church and raised a number of concerns and comments, I started a document and posted it to the SharePoint site with items that fell under addressing human health, safety, and welfare and minimizing negative environmental impact. So I posted this on November 8th. And what I'd like to propose, Gary, it looks like Gary made some comments on it. I think no one else has. So to the board members, if you'd like a couple more days, I can leave it open until Wednesday noon. If you are set with it for now as sort of round one, I like to propose closing it, sending it to the applicants. I'll clean this up, obviously, make a final version and send it around, but I'd like to, since next week is the holidays, I'd like to be able to get them something so they have time to look at it. And then when they submit their revised plans, we could make further comments on it. But these are, some are specific about, access, safe access for pedestrians and cars and others, and other of them are, fall under sort of environmental impact and so forth. So just wanted to remind you all that was up there and ask Sarah and Ron and Chris, Sue, if anybody
So
care to make
I
comments.
have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Can we leave it open till Wednesday at noon? And would it be possible for Helene or somebody to send an email to the members who are not here tonight and remind them so they have a chance to make any comments before noon on Wednesday?
That would be Sharon to do that. Helene's left.
We can just all do, Laura can just do it right after this. No, just,
I can send it again.
Can just do
You
it.
had
Yeah.
posted it the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will look. I have looked at it. My only concern is that I think the comments that are there are really good. We need to frame them in the context of the special permit jurisdiction. And so I think I had said I would do that, Laura, but we need to, I think, sort of, there are two pieces. One is we have to stay in our lane, which is the zoning bylaw, the review. The second piece is that they are, I believe that the limit of their Dover protection is dimensional requirements, but I could be wrong on that. And the precedent, I can tell you for the high school, the planning board put a lot of review and conditions into the high school special permit, and that also had Dover protection. And then we might make our life a lot easier if we do frame this as the permit format, because we're going to have to write them a permit decision. So Helene, I don't know if she's still on.
No,
but
she's gone.
Maybe we can get from her the template or a prior special permit that was issued. I might actually have the one from the high school that I might be able to find. So as a sort of a template, and I was going to make one other point. This is more I'll reflect this in the comments. But Ron and I were just brainstorming the other day and thinking that maybe there's a way, and Laura, maybe you know if this exists in real life, a thing that is, something in the driveway that would be trigger a sign on Mill Street as people exit the property. So it would turn on like a flashing light warning car coming, car entering or exiting. So as people exit which I think is the dangerous turn there, is as people exit the church and turn left towards School Street, which I think you've reflected as South Street on your document.
Yeah, Gary corrected that for me.
I saw one other place. And I think something there that, some sort of generally off, but when people exit, a sign that blinks to warn people at least.
There's probably a technology, some kind of a sensor or something that could do that. I wonder if we ought to take a step back with their traffic consultant, who it appeared that they had asked him to review their desired circulation route coming in and out of Mill Street and circulating around the church, but I don't think anybody's asked the traffic engineer yet, what's the safest approach and exit from the site? And it would be, because none of us are traffic engineers, but you can imagine another couple of scenarios and ways that it might work. And maybe that should be one of the questions we should ask, or we need a peer review to comment on it. Because we can all come up with ideas about how it might work better, but I don't think they've been asked that question.
So maybe there's
Okay.
traffic circulation and signage.
Mhm.
I hate
I,
to jump in here, but I'm gonna have to get off this meeting shortly.
Okay, you cannot leave. We'll have to shut down. We won't have a quorum. So,
Yeah.
I think
will,
I've got, sorry, Ron, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just gonna close
No,
out.
go
So
ahead.
Sarah, you made some comments about sort of, I'll just put those in the front end. They're just a trigger for how to frame this. Would love to have your help on that, or Suze or whomever can help me kind of tailor this better. And then, yeah, I'll send out an email to the group here with just that little preamble from Sarah. And then make any comments over the next couple of days. I'm out at the end of this week, and then next week is, headed into the holidays. So that's why I'm hoping to get people just to take a look at it in the next couple of days so I can polish it up.
I think they've made their corrections to their design because they're asking how many copies. So I don't know if these comments are going to get into their current, what we're going to see, but I think we're going to see something pretty soon. Did that
Maybe
go
they'll
for
at least
use?
anticipate some
Yeah.
comments that we might have when we see their
Yeah.
updated design.
Yeah, but I like Sarah's idea of crafting it to the bylaw.
Yeah.
Making that link. So that would be, I think that's a good idea. So it makes it, there's the aesthetic things, and then there's the things that we can really comment on. So
Mhm.
I think we need to separate those. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll follow up separately
All
with
right.
Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next meeting is in January. So to everyone, I wish you happy holidays, happy new year. We'll see you next year, as the saying goes. And thank you all for showing up. And I'll
Okay,
take a
thank you
motion.
very much.
Happy holidays.
Holidays.
And I'll
See
take a
you all
motion
soon.
to, go ahead, Chris.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second,
Second, roll call.
yes.
Ms. Tenney,
Yes.
Ms. Creighton,
Yes.
Mr. Olney,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. Becky, you have a few words. I see your camera's on. Any
I just
words
wanted
of
to say thank
encouragement?
you all and happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Happy
Same to
holidays.
you.
Thank you.
Same to
Thank you
you
very
all.
much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye now.
Have a good holiday. See you.
Tuning in.